September 480 BCE, Xerxes, king of kings, brought scribes to a hill above the Salamis Strait to record his victory over the Greeks. By sunset, all they had to write was how he lost. Watching his fleet burn, Xerxes muttered the most famous line of the day: "My men fight like women. My women fight like men." He had no idea what he was watching. First, the geography. The Salamis Strait is a narrow channel of water between the island of Salamis and the Attic mainland, at its tightest, barely a mile across. In its center sits a small rocky island called Psyttaleia. The Greeks had roughly 300 triremes, sleek warships powered by 3 banks of oars with a bronze ram at the prow. Xerxes commanded somewhere between 600 and 1,200, twice their number, possibly 4 times. To enter the strait, the Persians had to funnel in 3 abreast, under cover of darkness, hugging the Attic coast. The bottom was narrow. Themistocles, the Athenian commander, had chosen this water deliberately. The size that made the Persian fleet terrifying in open sea would become its grave here. Xerxes prepared for a spectacle. He set his throne on the conical knoll of Mount Aigaleos, scribes flanking him with tablets ready to record names and deeds, promotions to be handed out before dinner. He landed elite Persian troops on Psyttaleia to slaughter Greek survivors who would inevitably wash ashore. He believed the Greeks were trapped, demoralized, and about to flee. Every preparation he made assumed the same thing, that he was watching a hunt. He was sitting on the wrong end of it. Inside Salamis harbor, the Greek captains had argued all night. Themistocles and the Spartan admiral Eurybiades held the coalition together. At first light, the trumpet, the salpinx, sounded across the water. Then the Greeks did something the Persians did not expect. They sang. The paean, the battle hymn to Apollo, rolled out of the harbor mouths. The Persians, rowing forward into a strait they assumed held only refugees, suddenly heard a wall of voices and saw 300 bronze rams turning toward them in disciplined lines. The hunt was reversed in the time it took to draw breath. The matchups crystallized as the lines met. On the western end, the Athenians faced the Phoenicians, the best ships in the Persian navy. In the center, Corinthians against Egyptians and the Cilicians. On the eastern end, Spartans and the deadly Aeginetan squadron faced the Ionians, Greeks fighting under Persian colors. 3 engagements in the strait that could not contain them. The Persian line was already too crowded. The rear ranks could not see what was happening at the front, and they kept rowing forward. Here is the central insight of Salamis. The Persian fleet was stacked 4 ranks deep in a channel barely wide enough for 3. The front rank met Greek rams head-on and stopped, oars splintering, hulls cracking. But the rear ranks could not stop. They were rowing under the eye of the King of Kings, and to hesitate in front of Xerxes was worse than dying in front of a Greek. So they pressed forward. The second rank crashed into the first, the third crashed into the second. Persian ships staved each other in. Oars sheared off against friendly hulls. The trap was self-inflicted. Meanwhile, the Greeks did the opposite. They backwatered, rowed in reverse, pulling their line toward the rocky Salamis shore. That shore became their wall. Their flank could not be turned because there was no water behind them to turn into. Persian numbers packed into a space that could not hold them became the weapon that killed Persian ships. With the Persian center crushing itself, the Greeks executed 3 coordinated moves. Phase 1, the backwatering already in progress anchoring the line. Phase 2, Themistocles and the Athenians on the western wing swung outward around the exposed Persian end and rolled the line eastward like closing a door. Phase 3. As the Persian center and the right began breaking and fleeing east toward open water, the Aeginetan squadron, waiting in ambush, struck them in the flank as they passed. 3 blows in sequence. Hold, hammer, hammer. This is not the panic of brave amateurs. This is choreography. Themistocles had spent years training Athenian crews on these exact ships in these exact waters. The hoplites, armored marines, leapt from deck to deck and finished the boardings. By midday, the Strait was a junkyard of broken Persian timber, and the surviving Persian ships were rowing for their lives. Inside the chaos, two vignettes. Artemisia, queen of Halicarnassus and the only female commander in Xerxes' fleet, found herself trapped. To escape, she rammed and sank a friendly ship. Xerxes, watching from the hill, mistook the victim for a Greek and praised her courage. That is the moment he says it. My men fight like women. My women fight like men. He is congratulating an act of treason because he cannot tell his own ships from the enemy's. Meanwhile, Aristides the Just landed Athenian hoplites on Psyttaleia and wiped out the Persian garrison Xerxes had stationed there to murder swimmers. The hunters became the hunted on every level. On the hill, Xerxes tore his robe, the greatest king on earth, watching his armada disintegrate in a channel he could have sailed past in an afternoon. He descended the Nile and rode east. Behind him, the throne stood empty. Beside it, a small golden footstool had been left in the rush. A Greek climbed the hill and carried it away. It became the first physical trophy of Salamis, a king's footrest, taken from the ground he had ruled that morning. Xerxes had brought scribes to write his victory. The scribes wrote nothing. The footstool wrote everything. Power had walked off the hill and across the strait. Salamis did not end the war. It bent it. Without sea control, Xerxes could no longer supply the vast army he had marched into Greece. He withdrew across the Hellespont, leaving his general Mardonius behind with a reduced force. The following summer at Plataea, the Greek hoplites destroyed their army on land. Salamis was the hinge. Thermopylae had been a defeat. Athens itself had been burned. After Salamis, the trajectory inverts. The largest empire the world had seen was now retreating from a coalition of city-states whose combined population would barely fill a Persian provincial capital. The lesson of Salamis is not that the brave defeat the strong. It is that geography, discipline, and design can convert an enemy's greatest advantage into his fatal vulnerability. Themistocles did not beat the Persian fleet. He persuaded the Persian fleet to beat itself in a strait too narrow for its strength. The classical age, Athenian democracy, Greek philosophy, the Parthenon not yet built, survived because 300 ships chose the right water and rowed backward at the right moment.